Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is time for another true crime video yet again, and today we will be talking about the wedding massacre of Kuwait. Nazra Youssef Mohammed Al-Anezi was a 23-year-old woman living in the city of Kuwait. She had two children and got married to her 36-year-old husband Sayed Zafira during her late teens. She was a stay at home wife and spent her time taking care of her two sons who both had special needs. And this was really taking a toll on Nasra's mental health, which she really struggled with. People around her described her to be very impulsive. Her behavior was also said to be quite erratic, and the people in her life would often be heard saying that they could never anticipate what she was going to do next. And although most of her family and friends were used to her behavior at this point, and they were completely unbothered by it, this still somehow caused a paranoia in other people. And they never knew what her next move was. But despite this and her mental health struggles, Nazra was never officially diagnosed nor treated for anything, and she just carried on with life like this. Now, sometime in 2009, Nazra discovered that her husband Syed was actually looking for a new wife. And it is believed that he was doing so because he was disappointed at Nazra for giving him two children with special needs. He worked relentlessly with matchmakers and eventually found a match. In August of 2009, he made the announcement that he would be getting married at the same month. On August 15th, the wedding day came. Now, I think it's traditional for tents to be set up in Kuwaiti weddings, and they had two tents, one for men and another for women and children. And the reason for these separate tents was for the women to be able to take off their hijabs and just be comfortable and enjoy themselves without the presence of other men. Now, these tents were huge and were able to house hundreds of guests inside. However, they did not really meet the safety standards or the safety regulations, as these tents had only one exit each. Towards the end of the reception, everyone was just enjoying their time when the tent with the women and children inside of it suddenly caught on fire. This, of course, caused chaos and panic inside, and people started to run and push one another in an attempt to make an exit. And since there was only one exit and the crowd started to pile up, not everyone made it out. Within the span of 3 minutes, the entire tent burned to the ground, and initially, faulty wiring was blamed as the cause. But upon further investigation, police were quickly able to determine that the perimeter of the tent had been soaked with petrol and was deliberately set on fire. And the flames grew rapidly due to the extremely hot weather in Kuwait. Sadly, 57 lives were taken that day, and these were comprised of innocent women and children who did nothing wrong. Their bodies were burned beyond recognition, and their identities were only confirmed via dental and medical records. Now, along with the 57 lives lost, another 90 were also injured. The bride and groom were thankfully not harmed, as they were both not inside the tent during the incident. However, the bride's sister and mother, on the other hand, perished as a result of this arson. Now, initially, the police did not have any suspects, so they decided to interview as much people as they could, starting, of course, with the survivors of the fire. And one of these survivors was Nazra, Sayed's first wife. She was taken in for an interview and almost immediately broke down, confessing to starting the fire out of jealousy before quickly changing her tone and demanding for a lawyer. She also requested for her previous statements to be redacted. However, the authorities denied this request and her initial confession was ultimately used against her. And due to admitting what she had done, she was taken into custody and was put into prison right away. However, after being put behind bars, Nazra told everyone that she was actually currently pregnant with Sayed's third child. And at this point, Sayed did not care about Nazra anymore. I mean, she tried to kill him and his new wife. He wanted nothing more but for Nazra to face maximum punishment and get the death sentence. However, according to Kuwaiti law, pregnant women cannot be sentenced to death even after childbirth. Therefore, Nazra simply could not be given capital punishment. But here's where it gets more interesting. Just 2 months later, Nazra was found to be no longer pregnant. She claims that Sayed had paid a prison guard to force her into taking medication that would terminate her pregnancy, but this was never confirmed. No follow up examinations were ever carried out, and it was also never even confirmed if Nazra was even pregnant in the first place. And the only important matter now was that she wasn't pregnant anymore and could no longer be excluded from getting capital punishment. On March 2010, the trials began, and not long after, Nazra Youssef Mohammed Al Anezi was found guilty of arson and the murder of 57 innocent people. At first, she tried to reason out by saying that she initially thought that the petrol was water, and she doused the perimeter of the tent with what she thought was water in an attempt to put a curse on Sayed and his new wife. However, a witness came out saying that she saw Nazra with bottles of petrol and a lighter just a few moments before the fire started. And that, along with her initial confession, sealed the deal. 23-year-old Nasra Youssef Mohammed Al Anezi was sentenced to death and was actually the second woman in Kuwaiti history to ever get the death penalty. And because of what Nasra did, and thinking that she might have inspired other jealous people to do the same thing, a change in Kuwaiti law was made. People were still allowed to have tents in their weddings as this was tradition. However, they are now only allowed to use tents from certified companies or providers that have met the safety precautions set out by the government. 7 years later, on January 25th, 2017, Nazra's sentence was carried out and she, along with 6 other prisoners, were executed by hanging, done privately by prison guards. And that is pretty much all the information that I have on this case. I know this was a very, very short one. However, I still do find this interesting. I mean, based on their religion, Sayed was allowed to marry multiple women as long as he could provide for them properly. However, I feel sorry for Nazra because she was struggling a lot with her mental health issues. Plus, she had 2 sons with special needs to take care of, and it seemed like Sayed never really appreciated her for that. And instead of seeing her as a great mother who's willing to sacrifice everything for her sons, Sayed saw her as a disappointment for giving her 2 children with special needs. And I'm not saying that Sayed and his new wife deserved anything bad happening to them. However, I do resonate with Nasra a bit because she was never diagnosed with anything. She was never treated with anything. Plus, she never saw someone or talked to someone about her struggles and just kept it all to herself. Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you see someone who is struggling, please do lend out a helping hand, or try to ask them to get help. And as usual, I would love to hear your thoughts on this case. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you guys on my next video.